midgets.
Well, joining us now, Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson and Republican consultant John Thomas. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us.
Sure, thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us from LA. Now, of course, the protests we saw in New Mexico are kind of the top story here, but that combined with the fact that the female Hispanic Republican governor said she was too busy to attend Donald Trump's rally, doesn't that expose some of the shortcomings Trump has as the nominee, presumptive nominee, with Hispanics and with women, these crucial voting blocks? How worried should his campaign be at this stage, John?
Yeah, it does. You're right. It does expose some weaknesses. He's got a lot of ground to make up. He's got some work to do. I think he has to focus on an advertising campaign to women, showing how he's empowered women through his Trump organization, not some of the divisive rhetoric that we've seen in the primary process. He's already starting to walk that back. I think he can do it. But look, tonight's protests are healthy. That's great. But when they turn violent, that's a problem. And a lot of people we saw, they weren't protesters, they were thugs.
And Dave, I want to talk to you because Donald Trump's, of course, he's had that big win in Washington state. That puts him just within reach of the 1237 delegates he needs to clinch the nomination for his party. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, she's fighting on two fronts against Trump and Bernie Sanders. And now, of course, we're seeing all these attack ads, and they are getting down and dirty pretty early on here. We've got this for 6 more months. No doubt it's going to get worse than this. How do voters generally respond to these really negative campaigns like this, particularly when candidates, Clinton and Trump particularly, just aren't liked by a lot of people?
Rosemary, you're absolutely right. I mean, the reality is campaigns use negative tactics because they work. And this ultimately is going to become a general election, which is going to be a race to the bottom. And I think both campaigns are going to be lobbing attacks every day moving forward up until the November election, both of which are going to be driving up the negatives of their opponent in the hopes that their opponent will be perceived by voters to be a more unfavorable candidate than themselves. But look, I think the sort of explosive nature of what we saw tonight in New Mexico underscores the real challenge that Donald Trump has moving forward. This sort of divisive, chaotic, almost volcanic, explosive nature of his candidacy really highlights the challenge that he has in moving to a general election narrative where he has to really make a case to voters that he's going to be a uniter-in-chief and sort of bring together all Americans to move our country forward.
But Dave, the Democrats have issues too. You talk about each side needing to unite. How concerned should Democrats be that you've got some Bernie Sanders supporters who are saying they'll vote for Trump if Hillary Clinton is the nominee? Is there much validation in that? Does it matter? What are your thoughts?
Well, look, there's a fraction of the Bernie Sanders supporters who are saying that now, but if you look 8 years ago, 40% of Hillary Clinton supporters at one time were saying they would not support Barack Obama in a general election. Obviously, those numbers dissipated, and overwhelmingly Clinton supporters lined up behind Barack Obama once she enthusiastically endorsed him and became one of his chief surrogates on the campaign trail.
And John, talking about unity, it's a difficult job on the Republican side as well, isn't it? I mean, Trump is still trying to bring people on board, and he just doesn't seem to be able to appeal to the women vote right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, to Dave's point, Hillary Clinton is no Barack Obama. In 2008, it was easier for Barack Obama to unite his party. He was an inspirational figure. So I don't think that actually applies. But you're right, Donald Trump has to, I don't think he's ever going to end up winning the majority of women, but he has to stop hemorrhaging women. I mean, he's got a problem. Although we have noticed that Republicans are largely coalescing. And in fact, ABC just this evening said that Paul Ryan plans to officially endorse Donald Trump this week.
But how big of a difference do you think that will make? Because you have senators like John McCain in Arizona. This is a state that has consistently gone for Republicans. Now, if you look at polling, it could be a purple state, a toss-up between Democrats and Republicans because of the Hispanic voting bloc there. Do you think Donald Trump needs to do more to win over establishment figures?
No, I think the establishment will end up coming in time. It's actually a delicate line for Donald Trump to walk because he has to, he's the change candidate. He has to tap into the 66% of Americans in the latest Gallup poll that say America's on the wrong track. So, look, it's okay if he's a bully. he just can't be a schoolyard bully. He has to be your bully.
And Dave, you get the last word here, because it is a big problem when you're looking at these candidates. They're not particularly popular. What is it that they have to do? What advice would you give them, particularly Clinton, because she just can't seem to appeal to a lot of people out there, particularly white men?
Right, look, I think after the Democratic primary process is over, you're going to see this splintering within the Democratic Party sort of end, and you're going to see this coalescing around Clinton as the nominee, particularly when Bernie Sanders sort of lines up behind Hillary Clinton and becomes one of her chief surrogates on the campaign trail. He's going to help her break through and appeal to all of his supporters, white, working class voters, independent voters, young people who have enthusiastically been supporting his campaign. You know, once the convention process sort of moves forwards and you have that uniting process, I think you're going to see her numbers tick up in some of these national polls.
And so, Dave, you're making the point that you don't think any long-term damage has been done by Bernie Sanders still digging in his heels, still saying he'll campaign. You know, he's been all around California, still saying that he's better against Donald Trump. You don't think there will be long damage from that?
Look, even back in March, Tad Devine was quoted with Politico's, you know, hinting that Bernie Sanders would sort of be open to potentially being on Hillary Clinton's ticket. And so it's clear that there is going to be some coalescing at some point, but there's no doubt that he has, you know, sort of fanned the flames in terms of the fracturing within the party. But I do think he is going to unite. He is going to participate. In fact, the DNC has already sort of tried to pacify some of his supporters by allocating 5 of his supporters to the DNC Platform Committee, which helps sort of draw the issues in the platform for convention. And so you're already seeing that coalescing beginning behind the scenes. I think we're going to see more of it in the weeks ahead.
Dave Jacobson, John Thomas, 6 more months of this. It's going to be fun, isn't it?
Can't wait. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And for more on the Republican and Democratic presidential race,